Oi, gente! Quem já me acompanha nas outras redes sociais sabe que eu tô muito ansiosa pra mostrar esse vídeo pra vocês. Pra quem não sabe, eu fiz uma entrevista com um ator chamado Sonny Valicente. Ele interpretou o serial killer BTK, ou Dennis Rader, na série da Netflix Mindhunter. E quem me conhece sabe também que essa é uma das séries que eu mais amo, então eu tô muito ansiosa pra mostrar pra vocês. Foi uma honra poder conversar com ele e tem muita informação legal sobre o personagem, sobre como foi pra ele atuar nesse personagem tão intenso, como foi o dia a dia, enfim, todo tipo de coisa. Então, antes, se você gosta desse tipo de conteúdo, já se inscreve no canal, ativa o sininho para sempre saber quando tem vídeo novo, curte, compartilha bastante que me ajuda demais com o engajamento e eu espero que vocês gostem e provavelmente muito logo vai ter vários outros vídeos assim aqui no canal. Então, sem mais delongas, vamos lá! Passar para vocês a entrevista, eu acho que é importante para quem não conhece o caso eu fazer um pequeno resumo de quem foi o Dennis Rader, o que ele fez e por que ele é considerado um serial killer. O Dennis Rader nasceu em 1945 e teve toda a sua infância e basicamente o resto da sua vida em uma cidade chamada Wichita, nos Estados Unidos. Quando ele era criança, ele era muito ignorado pelos seus pais e dizem que isso gerou muito ressentimento com a sua mãe, e algumas pessoas alegam que esse foi um dos motivos para ele ter começado a matar, principalmente por ter um certo ódio pelas mulheres, apesar disso nunca ter sido confirmado. Desde muito jovem, ele tinha algumas fantasias sexuais que envolviam mulheres presas e indefesas. Ele procurava satisfazer essas fantasias sexuais pela forma de asfixia e ele fazia isso com animais pequenos, tipo gatos e cachorros. Ele enforcava, asfixiava, matava, enfim, um horror. Um dos hábitos dele também era perseguir as pessoas pela rua. Então ele ficava perseguindo e observando principalmente mulheres e ele chegava a roubar roupas íntimas da casa delas e depois ele se vestia com essas roupas íntimas, se amarrava principalmente nos pulsos e nos tornozelos e ficava tirando fotos dele mesmo, tipo de salto e com as roupas das mulheres. Em 1971 ele casou com uma mulher chamada Paula e posteriormente ele teve 2 filhos, o que é uma loucura. Por volta de 1974 ele começou a estudar na Universidade de Wichita e lá ele estudava administração da justiça. Ele dizia que ele estudava esse tema para poder aprender mais ou menos como que funcionava as investigações dos detetives e toda essa coisa policial que ele tinha muito interesse. E foi só em 1974 que ele começou de fato a matar. O modus operandi dele consistia em basicamente ele ficar stalkeando as vítimas por um tempo, até ele achar alguma casa que ele achasse que fizesse sentido para ele invadir, principalmente casas que só tinham mulheres. Podia ser até que os filhos estivessem junto, mas ele sempre tentava não encontrar os maridos dentro da casa, porque eles sabiam que eles eram mais fortes e talvez pudesse dar tudo errado. Então, a primeira vítima, a primeira família que ele foi a dos Otero. A gente vai chamar de Otero. Ele ficou observando essa casa por vários dias e ele decorou os horários que eles saíam para ir para a escola, para o trabalho, que horário que eles estavam em casa, quando eles não estavam. Então, um dia, no período da manhã, ele decidiu invadir a casa, só que quando ele entrou lá, ele não contava que o marido estivesse junto. Naquele dia, ele não tinha saído para trabalhar. Então, tava o marido, a mulher e os 2 filhos. Um filho mais novo de 9 anos e a filha de 11. Como eu falei pra vocês, ele tinha essa fantasia sexual de asfixiar as pessoas e todos eles morreram asfixiados. Então o modo variava, às vezes ele colocava uma sacola na cabeça, às vezes ele enforcava com tiras de nylon, meia calça ou com o próprio cinto. Ele também tinha o costume de, tipo, enforcar a pessoa até que ela perdesse a consciência e aí quando ela voltava à consciência, ele enforcava de novo até a morte. Ele fazia meio que essa tortura psicológica para elas saberem que ele estava ali e que elas iam morrer eventualmente. Ele também deixava as vítimas amarradas nas mãos e nos tornozelos e pegava pequenos troféus, como por exemplo, a carteira de motorista, um colar, alguma coisa que ele achava na casa. Algo que ele fazia também é que quando ele chegava na casa das suas vítimas, ele tentava tranquilizar elas, dizendo que tipo, eu sou perseguido pela polícia, eu só preciso do seu carro e de um pouco de comida e depois eu vou embora, ou então eu vou só me aproveitar de você e depois eu vou embora e nada vai acontecer. Só que depois ele ia lá e torturava e matava elas. Então, ele queria deixar elas confortáveis para depois matar de qualquer forma. Por exemplo, teve um caso de uma mulher que ele matou, que ela estava doente, e aí ele foi pegar um copo de água na cozinha para ela se sentir mais confortável. E não adiantou nada. Entre 1974 e 1977, depois da família Otero, ele matou mais 3 mulheres. E a partir de 1978, ele começou a mandar cartas pra mídia falando sobre ele, falando o que ele tinha feito, meio que se vangloriando de tudo, e ele mesmo se apelidou de BTK. BTK em inglês significa Bind, Torture and Kill, que traduzindo para o português seria amarrar, torturar e matar, que basicamente era o procedimento que ele fazia com as vítimas. Nessas cartas, ele dava detalhes de todos os assassinatos, mas não a ponto da polícia conseguir descobrir quem ele era. Inclusive, ele falava que tinha um elemento X presente nele, que era tipo um elemento sobrenatural que tinha em outros serial killers, como por exemplo o Jack Stripador, que ele também tinha, e isso que motivava eles a matar. Depois de 1977, ele só voltou a matar em 1985. Detalhe que durante todo esse período de tempo, já fazia 10 anos e a polícia não tinha nenhuma pista contra ele. Essa mulher que ele matou em 1985, ele levou ela da casa dela, levou para uma igreja onde ele era presidente, amarrou ela, tirou várias fotos e depois jogou o corpo em uma vala. A sua última vítima foi encontrada em 1991 e eu não vou dar detalhes para vocês do que aconteceu com cada vítima. O procedimento basicamente é o mesmo, se vocês quiserem depois me contem aqui que eu posso fazer um vídeo completo contando toda a história. Mas só para não me estender muito, foi basicamente isso. Quando chegou mais ou menos em 2004, vários veículos de notícias começaram a publicar histórias sobre ele e vários detetives que tinham atuado no caso desde o começo estavam muito frustrados, alguns já estavam até aposentados e eles nunca tinham conseguido capturar o Dennis. Então, um veículo noticiário decidiu publicar uma reportagem falando de 30 anos desde o BTK, e nessa reportagem ele dizia que as pessoas já não sentiam mais medo dele e muitas pessoas nem sabiam quem ele era, e isso deixou ele profundamente irritado. Só um adendo que na época em que os crimes estavam acontecendo, muitas pessoas ficavam completamente paranoicas de entrar em casa sozinhas, porque eles sabiam que ele cortava a linha telefônica e esperava as vítimas dentro da casa. Então muita gente tinha medo, pedia pra alguém entrar na casa antes delas e era aterrorizante. Depois dele ter ficado muito irritado que as pessoas estavam esquecendo ele começou a mandar cartas de novo para os veículos de notícia. Nessas cartas ele falava sobre as vítimas de novo e ele mandava alguns desses troféus que ele tinha pegado na cena do crime. Então, por exemplo, ele pegava a carteira de motorista que ele tinha roubado de uma das vítimas, mandava para as notícias para eles saberem que realmente era ele que estava mandando tudo aqui. Em alguns casos também ele mandava bonecas que estavam meio que vestidas do jeito que as vítimas ficavam. Então as bonecas estavam amarradas nas mãos e nos tornozelos com uma sacola na cabeça. E aí, nessa empolgação toda dele de ter a atenção da mídia, ele ficava ligando para vários locais e falava: tem um pacote do BTK em tal lugar, e aí a polícia ia e descobria, e enfim. Lembrando que naquela época era muito difícil de pegar serial killers porque ainda não tinha o exame de DNA pronto, eles não sabiam como fazer isso ainda. Então não tinha como comparar, por exemplo, sêmen ou coisas que tivessem ficado na cena do crime com as pessoas de verdade. Agora, o jeito que ele foi pego foi um dos mais ridículos que serial killers já foram pegos. Isso porque ele perguntou pra polícia se ele mandasse um disquete, eles conseguiriam rastreá-lo. E aí a polícia, obviamente, disse que não, que ele poderia mandar. E aí, pesquisando dentro dos arquivos no disquete, eles viram que tinha um documento do Word apagado, que tinha algo escrito relacionado à igreja em que ele era presidente. E aí estava escrito o nome da igreja e o Dennis. E com uma pesquisa rápida, eles já descobriram que tinha um Dennis que trabalhava na igreja e foi aí que ele foi pego. Acrescentando ao disquete, eles não podiam incriminar ele sem mais nem menos, então eles fizeram uma comparação de um exame de DNA da filha dele, que eles tinham acesso, e viram que era semelhante ao DNA que estava presente nas cenas do crime, então eles conseguiram incriminá-lo por conta disso. Então, em 2005, 31 anos depois do primeiro crime, ele foi indiciado em 10 sentenças de homicídio, totalizando uma pena de 175 anos, e na época não tinha pena de morte no estado onde ele foi acusado. No dia do tribunal de acusação dele, primeiro ele dizia que ele era inocente, mas alguns dias depois ele mudou e disse que ele era culpado. E aí ele resolveu confessar todos os seus crimes, e tem inclusive esse vídeo no YouTube em que ele conta o que ele fez por detalhes, como se ele estivesse recitando uma receita de bolo, como se não fosse nada demais. E isso só confirmou para os psicólogos e as pessoas que estavam analisando a cena de que ele realmente tinha um comportamento psicopata, sociopata, que não demonstrava emoções ou culpa pelo que ele tinha feito. Dizem que quando ele estava indo para a prisão, colocaram no rádio vários áudios das famílias das vítimas e ele começou a chorar, e depois ele pronunciou um arrependimento, mas muita gente fala que também não teve nenhuma emoção, que não parecia de fato que ele estava arrependido. Hoje ele ainda está preso e ele serviu boa parte da sua sentença em uma cela solitária pela própria proteção dele, podendo tomar banho 3 vezes por semana e fazer 1 hora de exercício por dia. Se você quiser saber mais sobre essa história, tem um livro sensacional da editora Darkside que conta a história em detalhes, inclusive fala de tudo que ele usava, das máscaras que que ele usava, de todas as fantasias que ele tinha, então eu recomendo muito. E se vocês quiserem um vídeo mais detalhado também, comenta aqui. Mas agora vamos para a hora que tava todo mundo esperando, que é a entrevista com o Sonny Valicente. Ele vai contar um pouquinho sobre o personagem, sobre como foi esse processo de ser escolhido para participar e das semelhanças que os atores têm com os serial killers reais. Obrigada por terem assistido até aqui, fiquem com a entrevista, não se esqueça de curtir e compartilhar bastante e até a próxima.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing? I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be here talking to you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I wasn't expecting it at all, and it's such an honor to be here talking to you. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm so glad that I stumbled across your account and see what you're doing. And I'm grateful to be able to be part of the little squares on your Instagram page, maybe.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. So I asked my followers if they had some questions for you,
Mm,
and I think we can get into that in a little bit, but I think it would be nice if you talk a little about yourself and how was it when you first knew that you were going to be part of Mindhunter?
I guess I'll start at the beginning. I'm Sonny Valicenti, and I'm an actor. I live in Los Angeles, California, in the United States, and I guess it was 5 years ago now that I got the audition, and it was just my picture and Dennis Rader's picture next to each other.
Yeah.
And my first thought, because I looked so much like him,
Yeah.
was, "Oh wow, I might have a shot at this," which was
Yeah.
unnerving, you know, to figure
can-
out where you're best used. It's a serial killer. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I actually happened to know the makeup artist on the show. She had helped me with a short film the year before, and so I emailed her and asked her, "Is this the program that you're on?" And she said it was, and it was all very secretive. And she hadn't heard that this role was being auditioned for, and I didn't really know what was going on. And the scene that I got wasn't even a scene of Dennis Rader's. It was actually an Ed Kemper scene.
Oh,
Yeah, that they just sort of had me read the text, 2.5
yeah.
pages of that great scene that he has.
Mhm.
And I just shot it in my living room on my iPhone, and then that was kind of it. And then heard that I needed to go into audition, and that's always really weird because you walk into the audition room and there's a whole bunch of guys who look like Dennis Rader, and they all have the same glasses on, and it's like super unnerving to see everybody like that. And then I got an email the next morning from the makeup artist who was shooting the show already with David Fincher. And she just said, "I just watched your tape with David Fincher. Here are his notes. Do another tape." And I was really grateful to kind of have that inside scoop, someone that I knew, trusted. She knew the work that I could do, and to be able to give me that sort of head start on how to work it was great. And the short film that she helped me with, that I wrote and was in, she showed it to him, so he got to see something else that I worked on. And then 3 weeks went by, and I wasn't hearing anything. But Dennis Rader is such a fascinating person, awful, heinous, deep, dark. And I just thought that I'm not going to wait to find out to see if I get this role. I'm just going to start working on it for 3 weeks. And if I don't get it, then I just practiced, and that's great. But if I do, I will have done some work. And that's when I really started to, go down the YouTube rabbit hole of videos. And then when I booked it, I was on a plane in less than 24 hours and shooting right away. And yeah, sort of how we got there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. One thing that you mentioned is that all the actors look a lot like the serial killer. So I think they did a great job on that, especially you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The very first makeup test that I did when I was in the chair and they did the hair and all the stuff, the makeup artist just said, well, they hadn't actually done much. And she goes, "Oh, I'm not going to change a thing. You're perfect." And I was like, oof, maybe you can change something. Maybe I'm not exactly a serial killer. Maybe you can change that. But yeah, no, they took that really seriously on that show, that having people really resemble their real life counterparts just brought a legitimacy to the show. As you know, it really roots it in a reality that is uncomfortably believable.
Yeah, yeah, especially Ed Kemper. I think he's like the most similar to the real guys.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That actor is
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. So how did you prepare for the role? Like, did you read about him, or you mentioned that you visit some places that he has
Oh,
been
sure.
during his time. I was really curious to know why Netflix wouldn't want you to talk to the real serial killers. I know it would be like such an intense experience, but maybe it would
Sure.
help with the role. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start there and then work backwards on your question. Yeah, it was interesting. I actually pulled up to the jail, the prison where he was, and I kind of contemplated whether or not I would go knock on the door and say, "Hi, I'm here to do research." But I knew that it would be sort of weeks of paperwork. There would probably need to be a judge that signed off on it or something like that. But yeah, no, when I heard that Netflix was, they just, I think there was an impulse to not want to glorify
Yeah.
these men, like sort of going in being like, oh wow, what you did is so noteworthy, I need to know more about it. They didn't want to engage in that. And also I think it's very understandable that the people, and this is something I learned when I went to Wichita, everybody, it's a reminder that these families really did lose somebody, that this town really did have a serial killer in it. It is quite sensitive, I think. I found that when I went to Wichita, it had only been 15 years since he was caught. So the people who were living in that town were living there 15 years ago and are still working with it, which was really moving. I the morning I left, I thought, what else can I do in Wichita? You know, I'd done some things, and I'll talk about that. But I thought, oh, that church, and I looked it up, and the service started in 20 minutes. And so I raced over there, and I got to go to church, do a Sunday service at his church. And you know, it's a Christian church. I can't remember what type kind it is or what branch it is, but there's a moment where everybody turns around and they shake your hand and they say, peace be with you, or God be with you, or something like that. And you're looking everybody in the eye. And everybody started to turn around and look at me. And I started to shake hands. And I realized that these are the people that he shook hands with. It's not just the place, it's actually the people who had to grapple with the realization that one of their own could do such a thing. So that was very moving. And I realized, oh, this isn't something that happened in the past. This is happening right now. But there was a moment right when I got there. So I did I read a bunch of stuff, but John Douglas, who wrote Mindhunter, the book that it's based off of, also wrote another book called Inside. Oh yeah,
it's really good. Yeah,
it's great, right? And Inside the Mind of BTK is the specific book about BTK, and a lot of the scenes are taken from that book that you see in the show. There's a map in that book of the streets and the houses where these things happen. So I drove up to them, and there was one particular house that I mean, I knew the cases backwards and forwards because I was studying it. And so I knew where he stood. I knew which window, you know, all of this stuff. And I got up the courage finally to walk into the backyard, to just for a moment stand there so I could say that I did that. And I got up to the house and I heard like drilling inside, like construction. And so I just decided to knock on the door, and a construction worker opened up the door, and I just said, hi, I'm here doing research. Do you mind if I walk around? That was all I said. And he was like, yeah, sure, come on in. And before I knew it, I was like in the bedrooms. I was in where I knew all of this stuff happened. And that was like too close for comfort. You know, that was very, very scary.
Which house was it?
It was there. I'm sort of hesitant to say, and it's only out of respect for
it's
the families.
yeah.
But if that's okay,
no problem.
it's sort of something I've been doing, but definitely was scary. And then you drive to the next one, and it's 5 blocks away. And then you drive to the next one, and it's another 5 blocks, and you start to realize that it's just this neighborhood. It's just this area where it was all happening. Very, very, very scary. And then when I get home, I decided to at night go for walks, and I'd put on the glasses and I'd wear a jacket that I thought looked like it, and just to try and get into it. And I started to follow couples home from the bar, my sort of local bar that I would go to every night, and people watch. And so I decided to follow some people home. And that was kind of an exercise of staying far enough away that they don't know that you're following them. And I couldn't take it for very long. My heart was racing after 2 minutes, just this, because at a certain point, you're alone. You take a turn and then it's just a dark street. And it's just like a lot of energy that was coursing through him. And in that book, his journal is in there, and he talks about how his body felt immediately before a murder and after. And you really that was when I started to understand a little bit. I thought like, oh, it's easy to say he's a sociopath, he's a psychopath, what a monster. And I don't disagree with any of that. But to know that there were relatable sensations in the body that I could understand, that any human could understand, that felt like a way in, to the role.
Yeah. I think the one thing that really got into my mind is his confession tape. I watched it last night. It's really disturbing, the fact that he talked about the murders like nothing's happening, like he's doing anything else other than that. He really doesn't look like he feels that he's doing something awful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was the first thing I watched, was the confession tape when I was working on it. And yeah, that matter of fact speaking about these awful things, talking about it like he was planning a party or giving directions or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So unnerving.
Yeah. I think what people really want to know is about your mental state while you're doing that. Like after, before, during the series, like what did you feel? Did you had any like therapist, or did you take care of your mental health for that? Did you feel any changes within yourself while you're doing it?
I started to think about what I think the job of the actor is to figure out what would make me want to do something like that. And I think at this point, you have to start stepping away from maybe what you know about the person, because it's going to be different in me. I'm not perhaps sociopathic or some growth in my brain that makes me more violent, whatever it is. I can't play that as an actor, but I can look at how I feel about myself. And when I get really depressed, frankly, when I start to have a lot of self-loathing, that's what makes me want to smoke cigarettes, or I guess some guys want to get in a fight, or I start to engage in destructive behaviors. And I thought, okay, that might be where I need to be, because the amount of momentum it would take to then go into someone's house and take their life, right? It's got to be a very strong feeling. So I had to figure out what that was for me, and the parts of myself that I don't like, that I reject, that I push aside, and then what that makes me want to do. So once I started to tap into that a little bit, I thought, oh yeah, there's a lot here. I can really work with that. That's bringing up a lot of stuff. But over the course of 2 years, I realized that I hadn't been really nice to myself. I hadn't just like simply engaged in any kind of self-love or anything like that, because I was so focused on, what about myself do I hate, that I reject, that's going to make me rageful, or that's going to make me have these perverse impulses, or whatever it is. So I do have a therapist, and I did have a therapist, and it was every week. And it was tough in season 2, because I was supposed to shoot. They started shooting in April of that year. I was supposed to shoot my scenes in May, but it kept getting pushed back, and I didn't shoot until December of the next year. So it was 8 months or 9 months of doing this work. So I kind of had to hold on to it a little bit. I had to keep it fresh, because I didn't know when they were going to call, because they were calling every month saying, come on, you're going to come. Oh, just kidding. We've canceled the shoot, or whatever it is. So I kind of had to be ready all the time. And I think after that, I really did need a break. I mean, the full deal: antidepressants, exercise, more involved therapy. My therapist was just, he said it very calmly. not to take this too seriously, but he just said, you just have to be careful because, not that I'm going to spin out and become a serial killer, but I think just like be really
Yeah.
depressed. There's a great line in the show. I think it's Jonathan Groff, Holden, his character, the main character. He says it's extremely dangerous to sympathize or empathize with serial killers. That actually is quite destructive to your psyche, to your ethics, to your morals on this psychological level. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, yeah, I do have to be just a little careful.
Yeah. Was there a scene that you felt really uncomfortable doing?
Yes, there was. It was the very last scene we shot in season 1, where he's waiting in the house for someone to come home and they never come home. He's just kind of sitting there and he looks out the curtains and then he goes into the kitchen, and just before he leaves, right, I did that. There's like a little fit that he has. And that was the last thing we shot. And it took about 3 hours to get that little bit. And every time I did it, the director, Mr. David Fincher, is incredible. He's incredible. I'll follow him wherever he goes. But, and he's famous for doing a lot of takes, but that was so uncomfortable because at first I was, oh yeah, how can I act this little fit? And then by the end, I was having a fit. I was pissed that the scene wasn't going well. I was angry that, I had done such a good job that week and this was the last thing we were doing and I'm ruining everything, or whatever was going on in my actor brain. It was incredibly uncomfortable because nothing was good enough. And I think that's what brought it to the level that it's at.
Yeah.
And incidentally, wearing the slip and a bra, being in the bathroom, that was the most fun that I had. We shot that for 4 days. I mean, we must have done that scene 500 times. And that was a blast, incidentally.
I can only imagine that after a lot of months doing that and preparing yourself, that must be really intense. Did you get the chance to meet or talk to John Douglas?
Oh, no, I didn't. I think he did come to set a couple of times to work with them, but I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him. But I know that I think they worked closely with him.
Yeah. And do you think the other actors felt the same while they're playing the serial killers? Do you think they felt the same as you did?
I do. I had a friend who knew someone, or rather knew Ed Kemper before he got the part. And he ran into him at a coffee shop and he said, hey, I'm auditioning for this role and I'm trying to go real deep with it, and I was really happy to know that other people were kind of having a similar experience. So I think everybody, especially those playing actual serial killers, I think it was a trip for everybody, for sure.
Yeah. Talking about Dennis Rader, I know this is a very complicated question, but what do you think was going on through his head while he was doing it? Like, what do you think was really his motives? There was a lot of victims at the beginning, and then he was like, he completely vanished for years, and then he started again. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, I guess, right? That is the big question. It's interesting. It's all speculation, but leading up to the first murders, he had just gotten laid off from his job. And I think there were some other factors that happened. And I'm not saying that because he got fired, he decided to kill people. I don't think it's that simple, but I would be surprised if it wasn't something to do with emasculation, feeling powerless. I think a lot of this is reclaiming power. I'm sure there's some hatred towards women. I'm sure that there's resentment, perhaps something from the childhood. And then what had him keep going, I think he just realized that he really enjoyed taking the power back. Especially with the way that he would taunt people, letting them know that his story was, oh, I'm on the run from the police. I'm just going to be here for a while to, take advantage of you, and then I'm going to leave. telling them that
Yeah,
they would get
yeah,
out alive, and then not letting them go. That's a sick kind of power. So
yeah,
I think in short, that's where I'd
yeah.
start.
Yeah, that's really creepy that he always wanted to make his victims comfortable, like uh, do whatever they want at the time and pretend that he was going to go away, and then it never happened.
It's that moment, it's in the confession tape, where he talks about getting that woman a glass of water after
Yeah,
she got sick. And that's so uncomfortable. That's
yeah,
so awful. Yeah.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Did you feel a connection to him at any time, like about yourself, like your inner self, and with Dennis Rader?
No, but the closest I would say was, that's a good question. I would say the most responsible answer I can give is when I isolate from the world, when I don't love myself, when in fact I'm quite down on myself and I feel very alone, I imagine that flavor is similar to something that was going on inside of him. But I'm grateful for the impulse to care for other human beings and need
Yeah.
people in my life to communicate with. So yeah, I don't know. That was sort of a wishy-washy answer, but
Yeah, no, no, I can totally understand that. And I think the question everyone wants to know is, can we still hope for a third season? I know I
oh
asked you
my,
that, but I mean, we're all really looking forward to it.
sure. I've spoken to a couple people on the show and I've read the articles. I've been told not to hold my breath. Um, the only line that gives us hope is that David Fincher said it would be interesting to come back to it in a few years.
Okay.
So I think there's a possibility, but I think for now it's dead.
Yeah.
I know that he's a fantastic filmmaker, and I know he wants to make films. And he talked about, that show shoots in Pittsburgh, which is just on the other side of the country, and he's away from everyone he knows. But if they do, BTK will be more of a focus. And I don't know if you saw the article, but he said that the end of the show was supposed to end with them catching BTK.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they would recast or whatever, but I think, and of course in Mindhunter, BTK runs parallel with their journey, and as they build behavioral science. So I think that just fingers crossed. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I really felt that during this series they were like preparing us to really introduce the character, and then we didn't have the chance to meet him. So I
Yeah.
think it would be very nice if
Multiple times on set, people came up to me and said, season three, it's going to be BTK. And I thought, oh my, this is so
finally.
exciting. But
Yeah, and I search when you search Mindhunter in Google, your character doesn't say BTK. It's like
no,
I don't know now what it says, but I know it's not his name.
yeah, ADT serviceman.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't. There was a scene where they were maybe going to reveal his name in season 2, but I was told that was going to be in season 3, maybe. But yeah, it's just ADT serviceman, his security.
Just one last question. It's just that got
Sure.
into my mind. Were you interested about these stories before you were working on Mindhunter? Like, did you have interest to read about serial killers, crimes, and all this stuff?
Not really. I mean, I know right now this it's very much a big, and there's so many resources right now, and great podcasts and shows and people who are really continuing to dig and investigate in this. But at
Yeah.
the time, I loved David Fincher and I love those stories, Hitchcock and all of that, but more from a cinematic point of view. So to have a first person interaction with the material was a first for me. And I didn't even know who Dennis Rader was until
Oh,
the show told me.
yeah.
So yeah, that was an eye opener.
Yeah. Well, that's all very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
that
no,
with me
sure.
and with all the people that are going to watch this. I'm really glad we did it. I'm really glad I met you. It's
Me
very
too.
special for me. So thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Thank you for the time. And it's a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, me too. So I hope we can talk soon again.
Yeah, please, anytime, reach out. Do you ever come to the United States? Has that ever been something you've done?
Yeah, you too. If you ever come to Brazil, I know that everybody hates us right now because of COVID and we are not welcome anywhere, but I hope this changes.
No, same, and also same for the US. So,
Yeah,
we're working to change as well. But if you do ever come to Los Angeles, my wife and I will take you out to dinner and say thank you in person.
thank
So,
you
but
so much. I
thank
love that.
you.
So I'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Yeah.